Welcome back, guys, or if you're new to my channel, this is Automotive Anonymous. That's the 2025 Subaru WRX, but more specifically, this is a limited trim level, and it's in the most iconic color ever offered on the WRX, named World Rally Blue, which even in the year 2025, I think it pairs nicely to this World Rally car. But although this is one of the coolest and most desirable turbo 4-cylinder cars to ever come out of a Japanese automaker, it's not perfect. There's a lot that we need to talk about, so today I'm going to share the good, the bad, and the ugly to help you guys decide if the 2025 WRX is worth your time and money, or if you should compare it to the competition or wait for the 2026 model year. So today you can expect to see a walk around, all the specs, initial driving impressions, 0 to 60 on GPS, and then my final thoughts, and huge thanks to the Twin Falls Subaru for letting me borrow this one for the day. I'll link them below if you're interested because they sell below MSRP, they ship all over the country, and with that said, let's dive right into this review. And thank you so much for watching car videos on YouTube today. But if you get anything out of my video, you enjoy my style, or you like the WRX, please be so kind to consider liking my video. Basically, that lets me know to make more stuff like this. It helps the video get shared, and it'll help you as well by having YouTube choose to show you more stuff just like this. Thank you so much. But if you're new to Subaru, or the Subaru WRX, there's a lot of things that you should probably know. Subaru is a Japanese automaker, and beyond just my opinion, they're one of the best. Even Consumer Reports rates them as the #1 brand in expected reliability for this year, and that's pretty cool. But beyond that, their cars are known in general for being safe, reliable, and fairly affordable, and I don't think the WRX really differs a whole lot from the rest of the Subaru model lineup, in part because Subaru is stubborn. As a company, they don't like to change a whole lot. They like to refine and make the same thing work better and better with every new generation, and they like to share parts. A lot of the parts on this, especially the mechanical drivetrain components, are shared with basically all the other Subarus, including the bigger Subaru Outback and the bigger Subaru Ascent turbos. So this should be a very reliable passenger car, even though it is a sports car, technically a sports sedan. But the Subaru Impreza is what started it all. Back in the year 1992, the WRX and STI trim levels came out off of the Impreza lineup. And then in 2002, we got our very own WRX and STI in the United States market. But it wasn't until 2015 that Subaru thought the WRX was grown up enough to become more than just a trim level. It became its own model. Unfortunately, the hatchback disappeared because they only decided to design a sedan, and originally the VA, or the first generation of the WRX model sales from 2015 to 2021, were pretty good. They sold over 30,000 units some model years, which were better than the WRX and STI sales from the previous generation. But then this thing came out in 2022, and although mechanically this might be the superior car, the sales have actually dropped. They've dropped down quite a bit to about 16 to 25,000 units depending on the model year. So although it doesn't sell as well as the last generation, it has a better engine, which we'll talk about soon. It has a little bit of an upgrade in other areas, especially safety. Heck, this thing is a top safety pick. It has a lot of good features going for it. It is even a 5-star crash test rated vehicle. And the adaptive cruise, lane keep assist, blind spot monitoring, all the features on this work as well as they do on every other Subaru. But why doesn't it sell as well as the last generation? I think there's 3 main reasons for why this generation of WRX has not sold as well as the last generation, and I'll even share what I think Subaru is going to do about it. But the first reason is subjective. The next 2 are objective. So my subjective reason, and I'd love to hear your guys' thoughts and opinions on these if you agree or disagree with my list, comment all that below. But the looks. Subjectively, the black plastic cladding, I just don't know how I feel about it. Functionality-wise, it is better. It's going to avoid rock chips and paint otherwise because it's around the fenders, the bumpers, and it's low to the ground. So it is all in a useful spot. And while I do think I could live with the cladding on the front, the side fenders, I just don't think it matches the rest of the profile of this vehicle. It just doesn't look high-end enough for this vehicle. Same with the side skirt down below. Thankfully now there is a lot of aftermarket support for these, and you can get 10mm wide over painted fenders if you want, and that likely would really clean up the look and give this a wider stance like some of the WRXs of the past. But then when we come around to the rear, it literally looks like it wears a diaper. And right now I'm in the stage of life where I know all about that. That looks like a diaper sticking up outside of a pair of shorts or pants. And I just don't know if there's an aftermarket option to delete that, to get rid of that, or to paint it. Even if it was painted, it would probably look better. But then you're going to be spending more money, which takes us to point number 2. These aren't cheap. The base model has already disappeared, so the cheapest one you can get is about $38,000, and that's the premium. But because this is the Limited, it's about a $44,000 the way that this one sits after MSRP, after destination delivery, and all the options. And that's not cheap, especially for a WRX. And then the third reason is the performance of these vehicles just really have not kept up compared to a lot of the competition. This is likely going to be a very reliable engine, and honestly, in my opinion, guys, this might be one of the most reliable turbo 4-cylinders that you can currently buy. Because again, this is found in the Outback. This is found in the Ascend. Even the Ascend is rated to tow 5,000 pounds. So this is a very underrated engine. It's very mechanically sound and built up, especially compared to the 2-liter of the last generation. But it only makes about 3 more peak horsepower than the last generation. It only pushes around 12 or 13 pounds of boost, and that's just not competitive anymore. When these came to the United States in 2002, they had around 220 horsepower. In over 20 years, they've only gained 50 more horsepower, which has really only kept up with the weight gains that this vehicle has had. So it's just not as fast as the rest of the competition. The 3-cylinder GR Corolla has 300 horsepower. The 4-cylinder 2-liter Golf R, that thing makes 328 at the crank, supposedly, but they actually dyno at around 320 or 330, so they're totally underrated. Meanwhile, this vehicle probably only dynos at around 220 or 230, so it really has a big power disadvantage compared to the rest of the competition. And when you are looking at the new ST trim level of this, that costs about $48,000 or 50 grand after destination and delivery. It just doesn't quite keep up with the competition, and that's really unfortunate because this is one of the most iconic rally cars. And since 2025 is already the 4th model year of this current 2nd generation model of the WRX, I think it's only safe to assume that next year might be the mid-generational refresh, which Subaru usually offers on the WRX nameplate. Heck, they usually change out the model altogether after 5 to 7 years, so really any time now, any day now, they should be announcing an update for this platform. And honestly, guys, to make it a whole lot better, to really boost the sales, I really don't think they have to put a lot of effort in, because this is a really good vehicle overall. It just has a few flaws. Subaru, paint the fenders. Maybe give us some wider fenders. Maybe turn up the boost by a couple pounds. You don't even have to change mechanical hardware. This is a really stout engine, this F824. I owned this engine for over 3 years in my Outback Wilderness. It was flawless for over 44,000 miles. I really liked it, and it beat the EPA MPG ratings. It really performed quite well, but it never felt stressed out. It never felt like it was pushing a whole lot of boost. Heck, you can't even hear the turbo spooling on this vehicle most of the time. So if Subaru painted the fenders, they added 20 more horsepower, maybe even really turned up the boost and gave us an STI with an unequal length header and a wing on the back, they really don't have to put a lot of effort into this vehicle. They just need to clean it up a little bit. They need to do what they're really good at, which is continue to refine the platform. And honestly, guys, I'm super excited for the 2026 to be announced. I wouldn't personally buy this. I do think that you can make it what you want. You can add more power, a Cobb Stage 1 tune, a tune and a filter. You know, that might be 290 wheel horsepower. Stage 2, adding in an intercooler, an upgraded intercooler and some upgraded piping, and you're well over 300 wheel horsepower. There is a lot of potential here, but I'd rather get that from the factory, especially if you're already paying over 40,000 miles. I want a warranty if I'm gonna do something like that. But if this had better fenders, you know, didn't have the diaper in the rear and a few other things, I would personally consider buying one of these because I really like this platform, I really like this engine, and unlike a lot of the other hot hatches, this vehicle is actually designed really well around the person and not just around the performance characteristics, which is why the other ones are kind of a one-trick pony. They're really good at being a performance car, but they're not very good anymore at being an economy or a family car. And because at the end of the day, this is just a Subaru sedan, it drives really well around town. It's easy to park and it fits well in the average sized garage or parking space, but it's also stable at highway and interstate speeds. Part of that is due to the fact that this is about 15.3 feet long. The wheelbase is 8.75, so it is planted, very stable on the road, especially due to the fact that it's 6 feet wide and under 5 feet tall, so it has a pretty aggressive stance to it. And then it weighs about 3,300 pounds. So although this WRX is a lot bigger than the first one in 2002, it really hasn't gained a whole lot of weight, and I appreciate that. But it does have a pretty impressive payload for this size of vehicle, 850 pounds. Although it's not rated for towing, it does have 5.4 inches of ground clearance, a 444 final drive ratio, and it can do a full circle in 36 feet. And then the last couple things to mention out here is the gas door is located on the passenger side, just like every other Subaru. And when you lock the vehicle, the gas door locks, so you don't have to worry about the bums trying to siphon any of your 16.6 gallons of gas. the same gas tank size found in the Forester and the Crosstrek. Although 91 is recommended, this vehicle is only rated for 19 in the city, 26 on the highway, which is kind of a shame because that is quite a bit less than what I've read that the Corolla GR and the Golf R actually get in real-world practices. Those vehicles not only get better MPG, but they're also faster, but at the detriment of not being nearly as big of a vehicle on the inside. This one would be much easier to live with, but the way that this Limited is spec'd, it has a 245/40/18 tire. No spare in the back, just to fix a flat kit. I actually think these machine gray wheels look pretty cool, and then it has around 8 to 9/30 seconds to tread on this Dunlop Sport Max tire. And then this is your key. Again, very similar to all the other Subarus. You have lock, unlock, trunk release, panic button, but leave it in your pocket because you do have proximity key features right here to lock and unlock the vehicle. The driver's side door panel shows you a few interesting things. First of all, the window is huge. You have fantastic visibility out of the WRX, especially where you can even see in front of the side mirror, something that Subaru's been doing for quite a while. But even on the mirror, you have a light, you have a turn signal, and you have blind spot monitoring. You have kind of the fake carbon fiber theme right here. You have some Alcantara with some Hobby Lobby red stitching, but you have a nice soft touch armrest. You have carbon carbon speakers, and you'll notice because of this door sill, you actually have to step over that a good little distance to get into the vehicle. So be careful you don't step on it and apply pressure in a downward fashion. There's nothing to greet you on the door sill. There is a little bit of bolstering on this WRX seat, which feels really good when you're in it, but because the bolstering is stiff, be careful that you don't brush against that and eventually wear out the siding on that. Otherwise, you have hybrid rubber pedals. I really like those. You have a hood release. You have a little fuse box right there. You have a knee airbag, part of the reason it's a top safety pick. Basically, the only thing you need to worry about right here is your trunk release and your traction control button, especially for those winter slippery days. Then you have some vents, you have some more Alcantara in a place you're not even going to notice, so that's a pretty cool touch by Subaru. Lighting stock, leather-wrapped wheel, and then this is the seat. It's heated, it's powered, and you have a small sunroof up top. Sitting inside here is pretty cool. I do feel like I sit low, although I could raise the seat up a little bit. The belt line of the vehicle is really not that bad, and you have so much glass, so much visibility. It's easy to use the side mirrors, the rear view mirror. You can just see quite well out of this little rally car. When you fire it up, it's not very dramatic. The engine doesn't want to start. Oh, clutch. What am I doing? Clutch. Remember clutch, guys. It comes in clutch. I just left it on the boost gauge because I thought that was cool, but with these paddle shifters down here, you can go through. Everything else is basically just typical Subaru, but the boost gauge is very cool. You have voice and volume on the left, adaptive cruise control on the right, and the cruise control settings actually work really good on this vehicle. And then unfortunately, you have the 11.6-inch screen. I do have to say it is a lot more responsive than the one I had on my 22 Outback Wilderness. It does get better every single year, but I still just wish there were fully climate controls that were physical down there, and even, throw on a CD player while you're at it. Otherwise, this does have the driver mitigation system, and I do have to say I tried something off camera earlier. I left it in adaptive cruise, and keep in mind this is all CGI trying it off camera, but I left it in adaptive cruise. I didn't touch the wheel. I waited maybe 15 seconds and it kept beeping at me. The heads up display started flashing and it eventually kicked me off. And then I put my head slightly down to look into my lap, and the brakes were briefly applied just like that. Not enough to really slow me down to brake check someone behind me, but definitely enough to wake you up and get you kind of alert to and scared of what the heck is going on. So that would certainly wake you up. I don't necessarily love how integrated the system is, but hey, it's gonna save you maybe once in your lifetime, and if it does, once is all you need. So keep that in mind. It's kind of a trade-off. You can't get out of that system, not to my knowledge anyways, but it does work really well. But you need to be paying attention so that it doesn't become bothersome to you. Otherwise, you have a 12 volt, you have some plugins, you have some storage, you have a really notchy mechanical shifter to go into reverse, pull up, go over, go down, and the backup camera takes just a second to turn on, but there it is. And then you have a manual parking brake, what I love, some cup holders, a small center console right there, and then you have LED lighting. You have the tilt and slide for the sunroof, but it's super hot out, so I'm just gonna leave that closed for right now. And then you have another LED light right here. But with that said, let's turn it off and we'll hop in the back. The back of the WRX could be the whole reason why you buy this vehicle over the Golf or over the GR. It is a full-size back seat, and in a vehicle that's still only about 15 feet long, that is very cool how Subaru engineered the back seat to be so useful. So the door panel opens up really wide, probably about twice as far as a GR Corolla, which I wish I had that on camera for you guys when I was with one recently, but I don't. That opens up enough that you can easily get dogs in, you can easily fit yourself in there. You can even get child safety seats in here very easily, because part of the reason you buy a WRX is to be your sporty family car when you don't need to take the bigger family car, for at least a lot of you guys. The seats do fold down, 40-60 split. I do have the front seat pretty reclined back. I would have to move it forward just a little bit to get that to drop down the rest of the way, but you can easily access the back from there. And then at 5'11", sitting behind myself, I have some pretty good knee room. I don't have vents though, which really surprised me when I first got back here. I have a mat pocket still though. I have a fold down armrest. All of the headrests in this vehicle can also move up and down, which is pretty cool. Where was I pointing the camera? That was weird. And then we have a pretty good headliner. I do have a hat on. My head can rub it into the sunroof hump if I lean forward, but otherwise sitting back here, I'm actually pretty content, pretty comfortable, and this is a decent amount of room for a small sports sedan. I think the back of the WRX has a lot of potential to look good. The taillights, I actually kind of like. I have knocked them in the past that I thought they looked like a previous generation Honda Civic, but overall this portion of the WRX, I really like that. Subaru just really needs to do something about the black plastic cladding if they do have a mid-generational refresh in a few months. And then the trunk lid. I wish they would do what they've done on the BRZ and what Toyota has done on some of their sports cars, where it's more of a ducktail type of lip, because the trunk lid starts to do that, and then this just looks like a 3M add-on, and I just don't like that a lot. But anyways, there's a few different ways to get into the back of the trunk on your WRX. You can either push the button on the dashboard, climb through the back seats, push the button underneath the Subaru emblem, or use the remote. And if you happen to get trapped in the back of the WRX, there's a few ways that you can get out. You can either climb through the back seats, or you can pull this little strap that's right there. So you have lots of ways to get in, and a couple ways to get out. But down here you have about 12.5 cubic feet of room, and you'll notice it's a really wide opening. Unlike some other vehicles and performance cars that have a lot of cargo capacity, they usually don't have a huge trunk opening. So you can really finagle a lot of items into there, and then once they're in there, they can move around. There's a lot more room to place more items. Down here you even have a little bit of storage, but you don't have a spare tire, which is really a big knock. I really think that that should be included on a Subaru, on a rally car, on any car. And then it's pretty easy to grab the trunk and to bring it back down. But holy cow, does the basic side profile of this WRX look really good. And very much like a WRX. I actually like this. You guys probably can't see on camera, but I can see the red WRX on the dashboard through the window from a distance. That really gathers a lot of light from the windshield, and that seriously looks so cool. But when you open up the vehicle, the door panel opens up wide. You have basically all the same materials. You just don't even have power options for the seat. And at $44,000, I kind of feel like those should be included. You also don't have any transmission tunnel storage or above the glove box like you do on some other Subarus, but it is locking because there is a key hidden in the proximity key remote, and it's not a huge amount of storage. But overall, you do have big back seats, you do have a big trunk, so there is a lot of storage in every other part of the WRX. And with that said, let's pop the hood and talk about the powertrain. Under the hood is the 2.4 liter turbo boxer engine, the FA24. The same engine that I've owned for 3 years, and which was a flawless, wonderful engine to experience and to live with. This one though is tuned a little bit differently, so it makes 271 peak horsepower at 5,600 RPM and 258 pound-feet of torque at about 2,000 RPM, and it carries that for quite a while. Under the hood, you'll notice that this engine sits up quite high because this vehicle is not as big as the SUVs that this engine is usually found in. The periphery of it is all the same as all the other ones. You have the air filter in the box that goes down to the turbo that's hidden at the bottom of the front of the engine. In an old Outback Wilderness video, I showed the turbo. It's even the Garrett turbocharger, which is pretty cool. And then eventually it comes back up. It gets cooled down through that actual intercooler with the hood scoop right there, through the throttle body, and then into the upper intake manifold. You can also see where the block is split, where it's bolted together. That's pretty cool. You have the whole drive accessories right there, the alternator, the top end oil filter, and oil cooler underneath that. You have the oil fill, the oil dipstick, all of your other reservoirs. You have a fuse box over there as well as over there. And then you have a battery right there. So honestly, guys, it's a pretty straightforward, pretty simple engine. Most of the maintenance items other than spark plugs are pretty easy. And honestly, again, it feels like it's not being pushed very hard. This engine seems to have a lot of potential from what I've seen online. So with that said, let's drop the hood, take it for a drive. Initial driving impressions of the 2025 Subaru WRX Limited. First of all, let's get up to speed. You can really feel it when the boost kicks in. thankfully the boost kicks in at a pretty low RPM. And then once you're up to speed, this thing, it really shifts pretty easily. In the lower gears though, you might want to rev it out a little bit more, which is not just fun, but also helps with a smooth transition. But now that we're up to about 60 miles an hour, just coasting through the country, honestly, this car's not as insulated as something like the legacy turbo models or the bigger Subarus or some of the other more expensive Turbo 4 cars. But honestly, it's better than WRXs of the past. It's better than a lot of other cars, especially older generations. And like all Subarus, visibility is absolutely fantastic. The side mirrors are big, the rear view mirror goes right down the center, but these windows are huge. You can really see everything reasonably well. When it's time to downshift, that's pretty easy. There's no rev match or anything on here. Maybe a little bit of brakes right here. Oh my goodness, this thing corners very well. And then it's pretty easy to boost right out of the corner. And then we're back up to speed already. Honestly guys, this is not the fastest Turbo 4 car on the market today, but it's probably one of the most reliable, being a Subaru boxer engine of the current F8 generation, a vehicle, an engine that's in a lot of other bigger models, even the big giant Ascent that's able to tow 5,000 pounds. So if this engine is trusted in that vehicle, I'm sure it can handle a lot of mods, a lot of potential in something like the WRX platform. And even though it doesn't sound like an EJ unequal length header boxer of the past, this might be the right boxer engine for this type of car. The seats are pretty comfortable, they do hold you in well. The heated feature doesn't seem to get me hot, just warm, which is pretty common for a lot of Subarus. Because this does have the Harman Kardon speakers, they do sound reasonably well. That actually handled that bump quite well, but because this does have a performance tire on it, a Dunlop, you can tell there's a lot of rocks getting kicked up on the underbody. But overall guys, this is a whole lot of fun, and I highly recommend you find one to test drive for yourself, as well as all the competition, the Civic Type R, the Corolla GR, the Golf R. Man, there are a lot of R's in the hot hatch 4 vehicle lineup. Anyways, let's get to the private road. We'll do a 0 to 60. 0 to 60 in the 2025 Subaru WRX. Keep in mind, density altitude is about 5,700 feet. So even though this is turboed, it still could be down on power up to about 10%. We're also not on a prepped drag strip surface, just a private road. And traction's off. We'll do a little bit of brake rev and see what this thing can do. And true 0 to 60 came in at 7.31 seconds. That doesn't sound impressive. It is a little bit faster with that rollout, and with practice on a better prepped surface in much better conditions, we could get a much faster time. But honestly, that was a lot of fun. My final thoughts of the 2025 Subaru WRX is I actually like it a lot. I think I've driven every single year of this new VB generation. They're good cars. They seem to keep getting better and better, but they're also getting more expensive. This might be the first new one I've driven that was over $40,000, and that's just kind of sad. And they're not very fast, especially not when you're over a mile above sea level, and when you're not beating on it, it's not going to be a crazy accelerating car. But what it is crazy at is how much grip it has, how well you can take a corner at speed, how well you can rip through some gravel and some snow. That's what these street legal rally cars are all about. And the WRX, while maybe not being the best looking ever to come out, and some people would argue it's one of the least good looking ones, it's mechanically about as good as they've ever been. It's hands down objectively the safest one there's ever been, and it just does a lot of things well. This finally has the engine that it deserves. It's a reliable 2.4 liter engine. It's no longer the EJs that can randomly blow up if you go around a corner too fast and you lose oil pressure. These things have really worked out a lot of their flaws, and there's a reason why I personally want one. I just don't want to have to do my own work for it. I don't want to add more power from the factory and lose the warranty. I don't want to have to pay for color paint matched wider fenders. I want to wait for Subaru to do those on their own. But until then, is it worth $44,000? Well, I think it just depends on what your priorities are. It's not the fastest or the best looking hot hatch, hot sedan you can currently buy, but it still is one of the best. It might be the safest, it might be the most reliable, and it wears the Subaru badge, which is pretty cool. But comment below, what are your thoughts? What are your opinions? Would you buy one of these? Would you leave it at the lot? I want to know your thoughts and all of that. I always recommend you test drive a bunch of cars before you sign on the dotted line, and with that said, I wish you guys the best. If you got anything out of this video, please consider liking it. Comment those thoughts, subscribe if you haven't already, check out the Twin Falls Subaru. And until next time, see you guys.